Welcome gamers to this one-off video. I'm going to be doing a bit of a expose on, look at all this stuff. Look how wonderful and beautiful it all is. This is Distant Worlds 2. This is where we currently are in the open beta with fleet displays, which is awesome, which has just come into it. And so I wanted to do this little one-off video as to how it works, how to make it work for you, how automation sort of can help you with your fleets, things like that. So let's talk a little bit about that aspect. I've also had a look at the recent reviews because people get frustrated with the game because I think they approach it, in a way that makes it more difficult to play. It's not the sort of game that you play like a normal game. This is a simulation game at its core, and you've got to play it like a simulation so that you're sort of almost watching what's happening as much as you are playing the game. And I think when you try to force things along, you stumble a lot in this game. So I thought I'd actually go through what all these different changes are, what they all mean, how you can make them work for you, and why this is just so bloody awesome. I'm just so wrapped with what I'm seeing here. This is something I've wanted in this game for so long. Anyway, I'll start at the start because this is only in the open beta. So I'll go through how to get into the open beta because it's very simple if you're on Steam. I think you can do it from Steam, GOG, wherever else you're going to get the game from. The Matrix store, for example. Whichever version of the game you have, you can actually opt into an open beta, but I will actually just be covering the Steam version of this to show you how to then go and do that. Okay, so when you're in Steam, just go to your library. So just make sure you actually are in your library there, and then just look for Distant Worlds 2 down on the other side through here. Right click on it. Okay, so just right click and then just go into properties at the very bottom there. And then on the side through here, you're then going to see a thing called betas. And when you have a look at the betas, you've then got like a beta participation. You can then go to the drop down, and at time of recording, it'll be beta, and this is version 1.2.1.2. So we're playing basically this is the most recent version at time of recording. But whatever version it's going to be, there will be a beta and then a series of numbers after it. And so that will chop and change. Once you get into the beta, it just updates into whatever the current beta happens to be when you're actually in there. So just make sure you are part of that. Otherwise, you won't get all these changes, and there'll be months worth of development because I think it's the Stellar update that just came out weeks ago, like a few weeks ago. All of these changes we're now seeing won't come out until the next big update, which might be 3 or 4 months away. So just be aware of that. It's probably going to come maybe when the next DLC comes or something like that. But there's an awful lot that's been added in since the Stellar update. Even the week of that update, there were major changes that came in, and I won't go through what they are. I mean, that's to do with the humans and the mortals. They sort of have added in the way that they play because they're now testing to you can sort of have all the extra things with the humans and mortals, which are so cool. That's a whole other series really, just on what that brings. All the government types have been changed as well in the game. There's still balancing going on with stuff, but it's minor balancing, but maximum gameplay that you're actually getting at this point in time. Anyway, opt into the beta, sort of reinstall, it'll then sort of update, so do the actual update, and then come back into the game itself. And so with the game, what we'll sort of see through here is that I've now turned it back to the defaults. If I just go back and just sort of get sent to the universe. Now, the game can be overwhelming because of the scale, the scope, everything that's going on in the game. You don't micromanage this game too much, or you find the areas that you want to micromanage and then you micromanage those. But let's talk a little bit about the display that we're actually sort of seeing. So by default, you're going to have this fleet engagement areas and attack paths set to the selected fleet. So if you go and click on that one, you'll see it's either off, selected fleet, or all fleets. Now, by default, it'll be selected fleets. If I turn back on all fleets, I then get this wonderful display through here. What this is doing is it's showing me a snapshot of all of my fleets and their dispositions, what they're doing, what their missions are. And this only happens if you automate the fleets. So again, rather than micromanaging, if I micromanage every single one of the fleets, all of this disappears because I'm then in manual control. And as I say, that's overwhelming at different times. I tend to do that a lot with fleets, have them sort of on manual control, but you don't have to. You can actually sort of have them automated, and then the fleets will just go off and either do their own thing or ask you for permission to do different things, which again can be annoying, but I'll go through. And I do hope that they change some of the settings and actually broaden them out even a bit more as well, like the developers, because there's not enough nuance between some of the annoying questions that the AI will ask you, depending on how you have the game set up. And I will get into all that in this video. Anyway, let's have a look at the actual fleet ranges. I'll just put it back down to the default. And you'll see when I hover over that down through there, it says blue is defense fleets, red is attack fleets, yellow is invasion fleets, and orange is raid fleets. Now I've got 8 different fleets. That's all we were sort of seeing through there. So if I click on number 1, for example, I can see immediately that this fleet, and you can see down the bottom through here, it's set to an attack role. So fleet role attack. These are all over the place. We're sort of in the middle of a war at the moment, and so these are all being repaired and built, and so I've got ships all over the place, but all coming back to the Nulumbre system back in through here. And so how is this happening? What's going on? How can you make this work for yourself? It all comes down to basically the fleet tactics that you sort of see in through here as well. And so there's been big changes in here. And so the fleet engagement range, you can see I've set this one to 50M range, which wasn't in the game before. It used to say, when we used to come through, it was it had do not engage, engagement attacked, or maybe I'll go through and just talk a little bit about these as well. This is something I've been asking for a while as well, to have these done this way. The sector references are gone, so they're actually all gone. The sector range was 100M, by the way. So if you clicked on 100M, that was the sector range previously. So that's actually sort of how it did actually work. But this is so cool, because you've got then like same location, same system we will see. Like it's a bit hard to see it there, but if I scoot into the Nulumbre system, that's what it's going to be protecting, this area in around here. And so and I'll go through again as to, you can see it's going from the home base is the Nulumbre to spaceport. So it comes from whatever the home base is that you've established for your fleet. And so in this case, I don't have any of the ships from this fleet back here yet, but this is where they're operating from. So this is their home base. And so the engagement ranges are from the home base. So make sure that you have set this home base up that you like. I'll show you again how to do that in just a minute. But this is where you then set your engagement range. And so when you have them automated, like if I just go, for example, back out to, well, I'll just go through what all these different systems, what these all are. So same location, nearby we won't see. If we just go back into, where's Nulumbre? Just go back into here again. We'll just use this as the example. We won't see this when we actually go back to the first fleet. And if I just go back and click on the to nearby, so 5,000 range. 5,000 range is really just this sort of area. And to see what that is, there's another tool that's been added into the game fairly recently. It's been in there for a little while now. If you press the shift button, you'll then see it says displaying distances up the top through here. You can see it up the top there. If I then go and click on an area and then go and click somewhere else, I can then see what the range actually is. And so you can see that's at that range there, that's 5,000 about to there. So it's hardly anything that we actually get to do. And so yeah, in this fleet range, you can use this to help plan different things if you need to as well. So it's just shift, click, and then just drag out, and then that's what you do. If you click again, you'll be then starting from wherever that next portion actually is. So it's a really handy little tool just for just getting your distances. The range that we're seeing there is because I've now selected the spaceport, and that's actually one of its combat ranges. Anyway, that's so nearby is very, very close. Again, shift key, click, and then drag and watch what the actual amounts actually are, which is pretty cool. And undo the shift key and you're back in control again. So that is nearby. So the nearby is 5,000 range. It really is just whatever the location is that you've got. It's not going to be moving very far away. The same location is actually the location that you're in. So in this case, if we were on, and I don't think we've got anything in here that's going to sort of do this, but the location would be all of these asteroids, for example. It would be all of this particular planet that we sort of see in through here. So the range here is just to cover a little bit further out. than what it was, but it sort of depends on the actual system itself. If we go back to our home world, our home system, same location includes this planet and this planet, because this is the same location that it's talking about. So that's how the location works. If I just go back to number 1 again, and we'll just zoom back out. Same system. If we just go back there, is literally just the same system that you can sort of see through that side. We now start to see the display as to what's actually going on. So we only see it when the ships are more abstracted, when we're not seeing the detail on the ships, was when we start to see these overlays. We've got the 50M range, and so these then go out to the actual range. Sorry, if I just press number 1 again. And so we've got a whole range of these. But again, it's under set tactics. You can then set your actual ranges up 100, 200, 300. You also then have the fuel ranges as well, which can be useful like for raiding fleets or something. But this can be wildly big. Now, what I've done is I've just gone through and set up a few of my fleets, or all of my fleets have just automated. Now, quite often I won't have all of them on automation. If I change a fleet back to manual, and you do that through here with your fleet role, and so the fleet role, if I set the one back to manual, it will then disappear because I'm now in full control of that fleet. It no longer is responding to that range. It's not looking for things in that range. It's actually now waiting for me to give input. And I think this is where people can get a little bit the game can become overwhelming in 2 different ways. One is that you've got everything set to manual and you're trying to micromanage everything and you're missing things. That's one thing that can actually happen. The second thing that can happen is that you're not micromanaging enough, or that you've sort of put everything on automation, but you're getting swamped by messages, which is another problem in the game, and I hope that they do address that with more nuance in the future. But again, you can fix that and help yourself with that to a degree. So I'll go through those aspects as well in this video. So if we just go back in, if I go and change the fleet role, I've got attack, I've got raid, I've got defend, and I've got invade back in through here as well. So these are all of the various things that you can then sort of set up with your fleet. These are overridden by, like once you actually set the role up, if I set this one up as an attack fleet, which is what I want this to be, it will then show a red circle around the range, and I can set these tactics up to whatever I want. You know, like, so if I want this to be like a 200M range, it will cover most of the actual combat area that we actually have that we're selecting. Now, it may be that we'd prefer to actually have the fleet selected back over in the Makwarai system, which is sort of right on the border. Let's do that. I'll show you how that would then work. So with this first fleet, I'll just go and get rid of that one, for example. With the first fleet selected, I can go into the Malumbre system, and there will be a spaceport in here somewhere. We've got combat going on. Yes, we've got a spaceport here. Let's make this the home base. All I do with my fleet selected is I just go and right-click on the actual base itself, a long right-click, and just go to set home base for the first fleet to the Itorio spaceport. Done. That then goes into there. And when I scoot back, I've still got this one set to the attack roll. It's now centered from that area. If I just go back in and change that to, say, 50M or something, or just do 50M, I'm now on the border and ready to attack anything in this sort of range. So again, this is a simple way that you can then control where your fleets do, where they operate from, but also where they operate out to. And so by going with minimal ranges, but from locations that make more sense, I think you'll find that the micromanagement will largely disappear from these sorts of automated type fleets. If I change that one again to 100M, like we can sort of see there that 100M gives me, like this is a target planet, for example. These are target systems. Any base that they have out through here will then become a target for this particular fleet. Now, it will ask me, once it's all set up, once it's all been rebuilt, it will then ask me what to do, and I can then sort of give it instructions as to what to do. But at the moment, I think I've got it set to suggest targets for itself. Anyway, that's an attack fleet. If I go to the second fleet, you can see there, this is just a very, very contained defense fleet. Now, again, I may not want it to be running away from this system. If this is a really, really important system, I may decide to not actually have the 50M range, but actually to have the same system and just have it contained in around the Velabri system, for example, so that it just looks after that system. It's and that way I don't have to think about it too much. I think what a lot of people in the past have done is they've had long ranges for all their fleets, and they get overwhelmed by suggestions, because if we actually have like a 200M range defense, it means that anything that's under threat in our empire, anything at all, like even distant mining operations, we're going to get messages saying, "Hey, do you want this fleet to go and help out with this defense?" Which is again overwhelming. So do yourself a favor and really start to plan out how you want these things to work. But this does give you a good range. It does allow you to have then a central fleet for defense in different systems. It's a fantastic system that they've actually built into the game. But as I say, it's a simulation game. It's not a game. It's not like a board game style game, which so many of the 4X games are, especially the Space 4Xs, sort of are played more like a board game. But this is very, very much a simulation game, and so with that in mind, automation is very important to get what you actually do want. That's the second. The third, you can see there is a defense fleet that actually happens to cover all of my central planets, including this one over through here. I could probably just leave that one where that is. The fourth is also set to defense, back over here, also at the Velabri system. I may want to change that one back because it's sort of like a bit of a backwater to say same system yet again. The fifth is a raiding fleet. You can see that this is raiding an extremely long range. It's got a long range to go. This is also operating from the Velabri system. Now, the enemy is more over here, so I may want to sort of bring this fleet again across to this same spaceport. I can do it from planets as well if I wanted to, but a spaceport allows it to refuel, so just set the home base there. And this is at 200M range. I may decide to go with 33%, which is about the same usually for these sorts of fleets. It's actually even bigger. There we go. So we've covered all we know of their empire is now within raiding distance of this little fleet. So that'll go off, and a raider will tend to then pick on mining operations and things like that. Stuff they're not going to be engaging fleets. They want to be engaging lone ships or lone bases. That's really what they're about. So this is all the different sorts of ranges. But again, you can sort of see that we've got like a different colour for the actual raiders themselves. That was the fifth, I think. The sixth is another defence fleet, which again could become another raider fleet. And it's just by changing the role to whatever you actually want. So if I go and change that one to a raiding fleet. Actually, no, I'll change it. I'll keep it back to it as a defense fleet. Anyway, the roles, depending on what roles you give it, it will then have specific things it wants to do. Like an attack fleet wants to go after major targets. A defense fleet wants to defend your assets. A raiding fleet wants to destroy enemy assets without actually putting itself into too much danger. And you can override the way that the fleet system actually does work. So even down through here, I've got like 100M range, but I can sort of go through with my formations. Like sometimes, if they're not using area of effect attacks, quite often it's a good idea to put these on tight, so that the fleet is more contained, so they sort of fight better as a group. You've got all these different things you can then go and do with the actual fleet system, all sorts of stuff. So you ship tactics instead of fleet tactics. This is the tactical overrides. You typically won't be needing to use that one, but you can override if you do want to. You've got ships for assigned positions within fleet as required, which means you've got like your core, your escort, your patrols, and things like this. It will just manage that for you, which you don't have to then worry about. I tend not to worry about that one at all. I just let the game do that one for me. And then you've got the fleet retreat strategy. So in this case, if the enemy strength is 100% greater than ours, so if it's 200 of our strength, we will then disappear. But we can actually go and set that as well. So if the enemy strength is at all greater, like if it's literally the same strength as us or more, we'll retreat. Never retreat, 200%, 50%, whatever you actually want. You have all these different sorts of ways of overriding how the fleet will automate. And again, pretty cool once you sort of get into the I guess the mid-late game where you've got like a lot of ships, a lot of fleets, and the micromanagement can become overwhelming. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, but this is great what they've actually done through here. So this is really cool. By the way, if you ever want to just simplify very, very quickly to sort of get a bit of a feel for what's going on, because this is quite messy, as you can sort of see. There's a lot going on, a lot displayed. There's a few little tips you can do, a few little things you can do once it starts to get to this stage where it's too much to look at. One is you can just quickly flick this user interface display in the bottom right corner, so down that way. You can actually just turn that one down. That will then just get rid of all the ships. It'll just keep whatever you've got currently selected and just give you like a bit of a basic overview of the map, which is quite clean and simple. You can just then turn it back on again. And again, this is actually cool if you're actually zoomed in on a fleet. For example, looks like we've got a fleet that's sort of preparing at this particular location. If I go and turn that one off, I then just get to see all the actual ships. So it then becomes much more cinematic in its scope and scale with what it's actually then going off and doing. So there's different ships actually attacking into this. There's some sort of attack going in at this stage. But anyway, that's just one simple way to simplify the view if you're wanting to have like a cleaner look to the actual game itself. Other things to do is that you can actually go, if you go and turn on the, you can see you've got game settings down the bottom here. We'll just get rid of that so we don't have anything below it. But game settings on the side here, just go and turn that one on. And if you scroll, I'll just by default it'll be up through here. But if you're wanting to actually make it so that you simplify your display, you may get to a point where you don't really need to be looking at civilian ships, for example, which are the little circle ships. And so you've got all these different sorts of things you can then turn on or off. And so, for example, it may be that you turn off all of your civilian ships. This is a common one that people will then go and do. If I just go and apply that one, all of those circles are now gone. So all of the confusing things that we were looking at, because we don't control those ships. So there may become a time in the game that you're playing where it makes more sense to turn that off. I tend to leave it on because I like to see the flow of where the ships actually are. It just gives you a bit of a feel because they're just tracking between ports and between mining stations and so on and so forth. But you don't control them anyway. Again, it's a simulation game, and they're to simulate. To simulate the flow of the resources and actually to literally, physically move the resources from one location to another location. Because again, as a simulation game, you have to have the resources at your build location to be able to build anything. It's an incredible game like that. There's nothing else like it. It's absolutely unique. Anyway, that's one thing you can do just to help yourself out. As I say, I personally like to have that one turned on, but that's where that one is. If you do want to get rid of all of these little civilian ships, you can sort of so that you're just not looking at the clutter. But I like to see, if I unpause the game, we'll just get a sense of the flow of where the ships are going from. You see, here we go. We're getting all these different messages coming up. Assign mission. Assign the 5th Defence Force to investigate reported threats at Tangriel 2 in the Tangriel system. So there's an attack coming in. And so I can then just tell it to assign the mission. Now, these can become overwhelming when you start to get lots and lots of these different sorts of messages coming up. The way that you change those in the game, and this is where I think a lot of people also don't realise just how much control you actually do have over the game. Again, this whole system that I'm going to show you can appear overwhelming, but once you get used to it, it's really not that bad. And so, but I do hope they flesh this out a bit more. When you go up to your Empire button up the top through here and then bring this open, it's a little bit hidden to find this, but this is where all your automation settings actually are. So you open this one up, you've got all of your economies, your governments, the bonuses you have, your leader. The last one is your policy settings, and this is such an important area of the game. And so this is where, and the policy, I don't think policy is the right word. I think it should be called automation settings, because that's really what it is. It's sort of like, more than anything, it's advisors and automation, but you've got incredible depth and detail about different aspects of the automation. So you've got like the basic one is this first one, and if you just go and drop this one down, your game may be set to custom, may be set to default. For example, if I put it back to default, it will then just reset all of the automation settings. But you do actually have a few, and I never use these. Like expert means that you're micromanaging nearly everything, or actually everything. Like if I go and click on expert, you'll see everything just goes to manual control down through here. And this is a long list, by the way. And this is the short summary list. This is why the game can appear to become overwhelming. That you've got rule and absence, where it's basically full automation, where everything, it doesn't ask you any questions, it just does what it wants to do. There still will be some pop-ups occasionally that will come up, but this is something that I quite often move from manual through suggestions through to automation when I no longer need to worry about what the game is doing. But this is rule and absence, so everything is then set to fully automated. But you've got a couple of settings in between, and this is, I guess, where the game can become a little bit frustrating with the spam of messages that can come back towards you. So you've got things, for example, like other settings like expansion, where it'll have different sorts of settings, where it'll automate the colony population policies, colony facilities. It will make suggestions that you then need to approve. This is one of these annoying little ones that can come up every so often, colonization. Now, these ones aren't too bad. It does automate the tax rates, the stock levels, the funding levels, so on and so forth, makes suggestions about ship construction, base construction. This one becomes very, very annoying quite early on. So I tend to move this one. Sure, just go back. I'll show you my typical progression through the game. I always start off at default, and with default, it sort of just allows most things to be automated to a degree, or to ask for input, make suggestions. So it's got suggestions. It's also got a suggest and execute. If you don't approve, it will just approve itself. You have to actually, this is a suggestion where you have to say no, don't do it, whereas this one here is a suggestion where you have to say yes, do it. So they're the two different styles that you sort of see through here. Again, a really, really good system. It's just that there's so much that you can automate in the game. But if you start with default, you'll see that the population policies are automated. By the way, these can be overridden on a colony by colony basis, which I won't go through now, but there's all of these things can be overridden if you want them to be. These are colony tax rates, stock levels, and funding levels. I tend to leave these unautomated. I know that some people don't do these, but these I do find it's much easier just to have the AI control the taxation for you, because it's all based on the happiness of colonies, and the happiness is all based on the resources that they get, plus a whole lot of other factors. And so as the happiness goes up and down all over the place, it automatically then manages the tax levels to maintain a relatively happy population. So just be aware of that one. You've got things, for example, like ship construction, base construction. These two in here very quickly become annoying very early on in the game. So what I tend to do is I start off with these suggestions. Once it becomes, this is where I wish that the ship construction was actually split so that it gave you a way to say, yes, build that type of ship, but not this type of ship. Because quite often it'll ask me to build constructors, which when it asks to build a constructor, there's usually a very good reason to do that. And so I would tend to say yes whenever there's a constructor request coming through, but I tend to say no whenever there's a military ship, because I want to control the military ships. And so in that case, I do hope that they find a way to either split them out so that we end up with more suggestions coming through about the different types of ships, and then we have settings where we can chop and change those rather than the way the current system is. Because very, very early on, I changed that one to manual, just so I don't have to think about it, because I don't want the AI building military ships for me. And at the moment, it's like it's all lumped in together, and that really does need to be split out into a few different types of, even if it was military ship construction or state ship construction and civilian ship construction. Actually, no, civilian ships would do anyway, so that doesn't make any sort of sense. It's more things like maybe military and state, like state or other. I don't know. Anyway, the devs could probably figure that one out. But it does need to be split between, like if, for example, if it asks for explorer ships, I would always want to say yes, but it always says, like we need three more explorer ships and 3 frigates. I don't want the frigates, so I always say no, and then have to micromanage what I'm doing. So that does need to be split out. Anyway, I tend to end up putting that one back on manual. I leave it for a little while until the suggestions become overwhelming, and then I set the one to manual, and then I just manually control it myself. Base construction, though, I do the opposite. Once they start sort of asking for all sorts of different bases, I tend to then change this one to fully automated, because you get to a point early on in the game, you do want to manage your resources and actually make sure that you're not building the wrong things. But very, very soon, you might as well just let the AI handle that for you. They'll build all your mining bases, all of those sorts of things will then sort of be done in that sort of area. So that's actually something that I do allow them to do fairly readily. Suggestions, I like to see that one come up, so that one's actually okay. Research I override, but I keep it on automated. Crash research, I do that one manually. I tend to leave all of these ship and base design. I do leave it on automated, but then override the bits that I want to override. The locations, I leave this on automated as well, but again override the characters the particular characters that I want to be controlling. And the main ones of those will be scientists and ambassadors. I tend to set them to manual. Actually, I should show you these as we go through. I'll show you that. If we just go back across to characters in this instance, if I go to an ambassador, you'll see there that I've got an automated First Lord. So he's got he's fully automated. If I go and click on him, you'll see that he's got automation on back in through here. If I go to the ambassador though, he's been set to manually controlled. So I'm overriding the automated setting by having manual control over where he is. And so I've got him at a different location. And because he actually raises happiness, so I don't want him going off and being an ambassador somewhere else. I'm leaving him back at the home world because he raises the happiness at wherever he happens to be. And so in that case, that's important for me. Again, another ambassador, I've got this one off at a different location. Rather than having the AI then change where it thinks he should go, I just want to keep him at the locations that I control. You can see that we've got different admirals will also then be set to manual as well. Generals as well. So I'm micromanaging those. Scientists, I've got one scientist that I'm manually controlling. This one over through here at a particular location. And then the other scientist I've got is essentially just floating. He's on automated. So you can override these by literally just clicking on this little button, and it will then just become from manual to automated. So very, very simple. And most things in the game have got this as part of it. If we just go back to the automation settings again and have another quick look. As we come through, there's not too much in this first little section we have to sort of then go through, but this one, as we sort of come back down, quite often diplomacy with the gifts, I'll set that to manual. Like that can become annoying. As soon as that becomes annoying, I just do that one to manual control. And again, you can change all the settings with how the diplomacy works with everyone that you meet. So you can actually have it whether you want to become friendly or become an enemy. You can set all of that up as the way that you want the AI to push the game forward for you. Everything can be overridden in very, very minute areas, like in a particular area, but like by planet or by whatever it might be, by ship. Everything can be overridden from the actual from the automation, or you have the global automation. I hope I'm making sense of this. I probably aren't, but this is actually something where I do like to have suggestions. Now the fleet formations, all of the bottom three here. Trip recruitment, I'm happy to leave the AI in charge of that one, but I like to manually do all my fleets, my fleet postures, and my fleet ship management. I always set all of them to manual, not to automation. If you leave these on automation, they will chop and change your requirements for the fleets. So that's a big thing. God, this is half an hour. I want this to be a really short little video just to excite you about getting into the open beta for the game and to have another look at it. Anyway, I think this is an area that people do struggle with a little bit, and I'll regularly come in as soon as something starts to annoy me. I'll just come in and find the actual settings. Like there's all sorts of different things in through here as to how the AI will then handle things for you with colonization, what you're looking for, what sort of shows up. Just everything is actually in through here, including like this one here, like the offering gifts, negotiating treaties, starting and ending wars. This is the same thing that we saw up through here. Gifts, treaties, wars. It's the same deal in through this other side. It's just that this is a handy little area for the common stuff that you use. This can become really quite overwhelming if not overwhelming in a bad way, but there's a lot you can do in through here where you then can sort of go through and override all sorts of different settings, and even just the way that the game will then operate. In military attacks with suggestions, but there's so much nuance as you sort of get into it. Now, I tend to very rarely look in anything beyond this first little area, because this will allow you to control most of what you do in the actual game. This will help you enormously with the frustration levels. Now, the one thing, as I said before, the ship building is it can get a bit frustrating. Also, the attacks, and this is where again I wish there was more nuance in the actual in the missions that were provided. So automate military attacks against enemy targets by your fleets and ships, or control this area manually. So this is one of these things where at different times, I have it on suggest. It does become overwhelming. Sometimes you may want to do it as suggest and execute, where if you don't action what's on the side here, it will then just go off and do what it's suggested. Usually the suggestion is a good one, but there may be times when you don't want that to be the case. So I never really ever bother leaving this on automated unless I'm really in the late game and just want to have like a couple of manually controlled fleets and leave everything else. So I'm just letting the whole empire run itself. And if you do that, then basically the military attacks, the fleets will then just go off and do their own thing. They'll, according to what rules you've set up, which is what we showed at the start there with the circles and ranges and all that sort of stuff, because it won't go outside those parameters, but it will operate within those parameters if you do set that one to fully automated. So again, the game is only as overwhelming as you allow it to be, or that you want it to be. So this policies area is an absolute godsend, but you've got to use it, and you've got to get used to using it. So I hope that helps. I won't go through all the other different things you can override, but literally everything in the game can be overridden. Individual ships, individual fleets. Like again with the fleet. So we'll finish off with the fleet system. There is actually, when you go up into the military tab, which is what this one is through here, it doesn't have a tooltip, or it didn't. Yeah, they still haven't put the tooltip in. There's a tooltip that should be here, which is the fleet templates. This is army templates down here, but this is fleet templates. This is such a great automation tool for you to just help with everything that you end up doing. I tend to go from ship design, I may even sort of show that. So your ship designs are in here. Now, you'll notice that what I tend to do when I'm looking at these is I click on the roll, just so that all my escorts together, anything where I've got like a collection of ships will then sort of show together. And I do tend to just leave it on active buildable designs. And this will then put all of my manual upgrades, so I can see very quickly what I'm managing myself. So when I go through, if I do an upgrade on any particular ship that's even not automated, it will then set that to manual automatically. And that way I'm in control of it. But I've got to remember to keep on coming back in. When I get new tech, I've then got to go back in and change those designs. And so, but I enjoy doing that. If you don't enjoy doing it, the game has also just had some recent changes in this open beta where it's retweaking the way that the automation of the ships that are built by the AI are operating, and that actually works very, very well. I've got to say that the AI designed ships are not bad. They're not. It's not like a terrible automation system at all. And it's funny when you read some of the comments and some of the feedback. People are saying that it is, and it's actually not. They're quite functional. You don't have to play with purpose-built fleets. I like doing that. It's the area of the game that I really enjoy, and so I do it. But if you don't enjoy that, just use the AI. Just allow the AI to have its own fleets. Like for example, in this case, my troop transport. I'm not overriding that one, even though I sort of am tempted to because I enjoy doing it, but I don't need to. Like it's not an important ship. I've actually got very specific needs for all my other ships. I've got things in mind that I enjoy playing in the game, which is why I've overridden. And some of these ships I haven't even built anything of, like the escorts and the patrol escorts. You can see I've got 0 of those. I've still overridden them just in case I need to use them. But anyway, once you've actually got all these different sorts of ships that you are then building, and it's very easy to then, once you've got the build started, to then come back in and just tweak what you're doing. I won't go through how you actually go and do that one. But you'll see there that ship design overall is fully automated, except where I'm overriding it. I've got manual in through here. So I've overridden these different designs. And so the only way they can be upgraded is if I go in and actually do the upgrade manually. So that's something that I like to control. But you don't have to do it. You can just allow the game to play itself. So that's the ship designs. From there, what I like to do is, again, the game will have its own system. You can just allow the game to play its own system, but it doesn't scale up. And this is actually the fleet templates, and so again, there's no tooltip for that one. It just happens to be, and so they will put that one in at some stage, but there is no tooltip for the fleet templates. Off through here, very importantly, this is only for ships that you, or for fleets that you build after you've used this template. Okay, it's not retrospective. It doesn't go back and then change your existing fleets. You have to then manually change. Well, you've sort of got to then override what your existing systems actually are. And so I tend to start off with small fleets, like for example, like the defense fleet. Now, if we go in through here and go and edit that, we've got two different areas of these templates. One is the composition of the fleet, and so you've got a defense fleet in through here. We've got 4 frigates and 4 escorts. This is also recently changed, where you can then go and change exactly what type of ship you want to have in. So with my escorts, for example, for this particular fleet, I particularly want my heavy escort. You saw there back in the designs, I've got like a number of heavy escorts out in different fleets. And so I go to this one, and instead of going to I've got latest design for the role, which is basically for any of the escorts. Latest design for the largest hull for the role. So whichever is the largest escort hull will then be selected. And that's the default for this, so you may want to override that. Then you've got the escort, patrol escort, and heavy escort. These are the actual hull types that we saw then back in the ship designer, the 3 different types of escorts. And so I only want heavy escorts. And so I'm just going to go latest design for the heavy escort. That will be the one there. I can also say I only want to have a heavy escort version 7 design in this particular ship, in this particular fleet, if I've got like a purpose-built escort design. And so all of these are quite viable and valuable, but I tend to use the specific hulls to have my automation. And so again, latest design for the hull frigate. When we get the extra frigates, we may have to come back in and just make doubly sure that it didn't flick over to one of the new frigate designs when that gets unlocked. So that there is a way to very, very quickly control exactly what ships are composing your fleet. So I see a lot of comments that's super frustrating because the game keeps on putting different ships in your fleets. That's because you've got the automation setting for fleets on, and you also may not have latest design for the specific hull that you're looking for. Again, yes, it's micromanagement to get this way, but my God, it makes the game so much easier because you're just not thinking about it. You don't have to worry about it. Again, the game does all this automatically for you, but this does allow that to sort of then happen. And again, you've got like this. So this one does sort of work retrospectively, the composition, which I'll show you how that one actually does work. But down through here, this is the default tactical settings. When you build a new fleet, this essentially is what we saw there. If I go back to my actual fleets, if I go and press number 1 again, and then go and open this one up, this is exactly what we see down through here. So all of this is, and this is just how it starts off. How is the fleet constructed? If we go back in and have a look at the defense fleet again, and have a bit of a look at it, you can see that we've still got all this stuff at the bottom there. But just go back and just go and turn that one off. Hang on. It's over the top of each other. Just go back into edit for the defense fleet. So same system, and then I've got these other different ranges in through here again. So I may sort of think, okay, defense fleet, let's make it so that the default for anything that's built after what we currently have is going to be 50M, and we have different things in through there. Now it doesn't have, one thing it doesn't actually have, which I find a bit surprising, which it should actually really have in here as well, is whether it's set to normal, tight, loose, or anything like that. So that's actually is missing from this little area. But this is cool, actually. It does give you a full rundown is exactly what everything. Okay, they've updated all this as well, which is awesome. Yeah. Anyway, it's read all this stuff because it's quite good. The information that's actually in here as to how things actually do operate. And so anyway, the defense fleets have got like a different type of way that they then operate. So. And again, you can bring your own different designs in. You can just sort of go copy as new, and then build it up based on its role. So the role doesn't change, but your fleet types can. So you can sort of add in new defense fleets and actually have like a two different types of defence fleets. You may have an area of space where you don't need much in a defence fleet because it's just going and defend against threats, and you may have like a wall footing defence fleet as well. And so you can actually go and copy that one as new if you wanted to, add it in. So if we put this one into say wall footing, I might just show this because this is something you may want to do. So this is a wall footing defence fleet. If I just press enter, that's now a new template that we actually have. And let's just say that, okay, well, look, what we really need to do here is we have to have 6 frigates and 6 escorts. And so that will then just up those. We'll change this one so that it is actually set to just the same system. Again, this isn't applied retrospectively. So when we apply this, it can get a bit confusing. This is only for new fleets that get built, but that may be something that we want to do. We could even go and add an item and think, okay, look, I really need to have also a destroyer in here as well. And the destroyer that I want to have is just, I've only got one. I'll just go to the latest design for the hull destroyer. And so that way we've got now a different type of a fleet, but it's still based around the defense aspect, which means enemy strength greater than 100% or greater, but it will actually then just go off to try to defend the different locations. So the different roles do play a role. Anyway, if we just go and close that one down, we'll now see that we've got a war footing defend fleet in through there. And so it's got the build cost, the maintenance cost of the fleet, 13 ships in that particular fleet. Now, the way that we would then use that particular template is we can either go and build a new war footing defense fleet at a different location, or which is really, really cool. Or if we just go back through, if I just go back to say the 8th fleet, which is the 8th defense, or just this one here is, see how the 9th defense fleet is actually already built, like everything has been built for this particular fleet. We've got 4 frigates and 4 heavy escorts. One thing you'll notice is I can now go and this one's set to automation. It will go and automatically retrofit at different locations. In fact, you can see there it's going off to retrofit right now. But one thing I can do is you can see it's got top-up fleet with the fleet with ships. It's disabled because I've got no missing fleet roles. If I go and change the fleet template from the defense fleet to my new war footing defend fleet in through there, this button now comes up, and this is a really easy way to control retrospectively the composition of your fleets. So you just top up the ship with fleets, and bang, it's going to start. It's run out of money. Yeah. So it's building one frigate in through here, but it hasn't been able to afford to build the other ships just yet. So but this is a way to control how the composition works for your actual fleets. And then of course, if I go back to change it back to just a normal defense fleet, it's now going to have an extra ship in it. And again, there's automation settings you can have so that doesn't happen. It'll then shed those extra ships, but I tend to just leave them the way they are. Sometimes it's quite useful to be able to just pop a few extra ships into different fleets depending on what they're doing. But there's a lot you can do with the automation settings, so I hope this has been helpful. If you have been struggling with that aspect of the game, remember your best friend are these sorts of things like the templates, the policy settings in particular. These new changes now, you can see exactly where the ranges are for what the fleets will then be doing is incredible. These little helpers are going to help enormously. Just be aware that as soon as I give an order to a fleet to do something, it's other than retrofit, it's going to then change to manual, in which case, bang, it's gone. But now we have this reminder, if that actually happens, we can then go back and think, oh yeah, I needed to, it's important that one is actually doing missions within this range. So you'll be able to just quickly go through. I also, with all my fleets, I tend to, if you press the F key, it will cycle through your fleets. But what I tend to do is I tend to, like with the first fleet, I go Control 1, which then sets the hotkey to number 1, and so on and so forth. So if I press the 4th fleet, I'm pressing number 4, I get the 4th fleet. If I press the 8, I'm getting the 8th fleet. That just helps a little bit as well with the keyboard shortcuts. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful. It's been a long video actually for something I was literally just coming in to say, hey, look at what this does now with all these circles. But the game is improving in so many different ways. So yeah, get back into it if you haven't played it for a while. I think you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised. I mean, I've already done other videos on the border system now, which is incredibly great. It now makes such sense with the colours. The colours no longer sort of meld in together. But there's so many changes that have come in this new beta update system since the latest big update. There's been so much innovation, and particularly in the quality of life aspect in the game. Still work to do, but it's really come an awfully long way. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope this has been helpful. I will be doing live streams on Twitch for this, of course, and also here on YouTube. So thanks for watching.